The universe had rules. Simple, unbreakable laws that every civilized species understood without question. Rule 1. Never attack a world without proper reconnaissance. Rule 2. Always ensure technological superiority before engagement. Rule 3. Primitives with chemical projectiles posed no threat to energy-based weapons. The Zephyrian Empire had followed these rules for 3,000 years, conquering over 400 worlds without a single defeat. Their crystalline ships could level continents, their plasma weapons could melt mountains, and their soldiers wore armor that made them nearly invincible. But as Admiral Kethvar watched his invasion fleet approach the small blue planet called Earth, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly, catastrophically wrong. The humans had been silent for too long. No desperate pleas for mercy, no panicked broadcasts, no chaotic evacuations. Just silence. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for centuries. Every war, every conflict, every drop of blood spilled had been teaching them one simple truth. When someone comes to take your home, you don't just fight back. You make them regret ever hearing your species' name. The invasion was about to begin. But the question wasn't whether Earth would fall. The question was whether any Zephyrian would live to tell the tale of what they found waiting for them. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystal Dominion, watching Earth grow larger in the viewing portal. The blue marble hung in space like a jewel, its white clouds swirling peacefully over brown and green continents. It looked so innocent, so defenseless, just like all the others. Surface scan complete, Admiral reported his tactical officer, Zex High. The young Zephyrian's crystalline face plates glowed with confidence. The primitives have basic satellite networks and crude chemical-powered aircraft. No energy shields detected. No plasma weapons. Their most advanced projectile weapons appear to be simple metal slugs propelled by explosive compounds. Kethvar nodded slowly. The intelligence matched what their scouts had reported 6 months ago. Earth's inhabitants, who called themselves humans, had barely progressed beyond combustion engines and electronic communications. By Zephyrian standards, they were practically cavemen with slightly better tools. Begin the standard invasion protocol, Kethvar ordered. Deploy advanced scouts to major population centers. I want surrender demands broadcast in their dominant languages within the hour. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. This was their 401st conquest, and the routine had been perfected over millennia. First, demonstrate overwhelming superiority. Second, demand immediate surrender. Third, pacify any resistance with minimal force. Fourth, begin resource extraction and population management. It had never failed. 30 minutes later, sleek Zephyrian scout ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like silver teardrops. Their destination, 12 major cities across the planet. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Delhi, Lagos, Sao Paulo, Sydney, Cairo, Mexico City, and Los Angeles. The plan was simple. Appear over the largest population centers simultaneously, broadcast surrender demands, and wait for the inevitable capitulation. Commander Velthor piloted his scout ship toward the towering spires of New York City. Through his ship's sensors, he could see millions of humans moving through the streets below like ants. Primitive ground vehicles clogged the pathways between massive stone and metal structures. It was almost amusing how they had built their civilization around such inefficient transportation methods. Beginning descent over target zone, Velthor reported to the fleet. No defensive measures detected. Primitive aircraft are maintaining distance. Proceeding with demonstration phase. The scout ship settled into a hover pattern directly over Times Square, its gleaming hull reflecting the late afternoon sun. Velthor watched as humans below pointed skyward, some holding small rectangular devices, their crude communication tools. Within minutes, crowds began to gather. Excellent response, Velthor murmured. The humans were behaving exactly as predicted. Curiosity followed by fear, then, hopefully by submission. He activated his ship's translation systems and began broadcasting the standard surrender demand. Inhabitants of Earth, his voice boomed across the city in multiple human languages. You are witnessing the arrival of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our domain. Surrender immediately, and your species will be granted the privilege of serving our great civilization. Resistance will result in the complete extermination of your kind. You have one of your planetary rotations to comply. But something was wrong. Instead of the expected panic, the humans below seemed organized. Groups of them were moving with purpose, not running in random directions as previous species had done. Some were speaking into their communication devices with calm, measured tones. Others were moving toward what appeared to be predetermined positions. Command, Velthor reported, uncertainty creeping into his voice. The humans are not responding as expected. They appear to be implementing some form of organized protocol. From the flagship, Admiral Kethvar frowned. Clarify, Commander. Are they attempting to surrender? Negative, Admiral. They appear to be preparing for something. Similar reports began flooding in from the other scout ships positioned over major cities worldwide. The humans weren't panicking. They weren't surrendering. They were getting ready. In a bunker deep beneath the Pentagon, General Sarah Mitchell studied the real-time satellite feeds, showing Zephyrian positions worldwide. At 62 years old, she had spent the last 25 years preparing for this exact moment. Ever since the first confirmed extraterrestrial contact in 2001, followed by careful observation of their invasion patterns on other worlds, humanity had known this day would come. All teams report ready status. Came the voice of Colonel James Rodriguez through her earpiece. Operation Terran Defense is go for execution. General Mitchell took a deep breath. The aliens had followed their predicted pattern perfectly. Large ships remaining in orbit, while smaller vessels conducted what they believed would be intimidation displays. They had positioned themselves over major population centers, just as the classified briefings had indicated they would. What they didn't know was that humanity had spent decades studying their methods. Execute Phase 1, General Mitchell ordered. Around the world, the response was immediate and coordinated. In New York, windows and surrounding skyscrapers suddenly opened, revealing concealed weapon emplacements that had been installed years earlier under the guise of renovation projects. In London, Hyde Park's seemingly innocent maintenance buildings slid open their roofs to expose advanced surface-to-air missile systems. In Tokyo, the city's famous neon signs flickered and died as power was redirected to massive electromagnetic pulse generators hidden beneath the streets. Commander Velthor was the first to realize something was catastrophically wrong. His ship's sensors began detecting energy signatures that shouldn't exist on a primitive world. High-powered electronics were coming online across the city, systems far more advanced than their intelligence had suggested possible. Admiral, I'm detecting massive power buildups throughout the city, he reported, his voice tight with growing alarm. These readings are consistent with, that's impossible. They're showing energy weapon signatures. Before Admiral Kethvar could respond, the first volley erupted from New York skyscrapers. But these weren't the primitive chemical projectiles their intelligence had described. Streams of coherent energy lanced out from concealed positions, striking Velthor's scout ship with precision that would have impressed Zephyrian gunners. The ship's shields flared and held but barely. Alarms screamed across the bridge as secondary systems failed under the unexpected assault. Shields at 60%. Velthor's tactical officer shouted. These are military-grade plasma weapons. How do they have plasma weapons? The answer came from General Mitchell's voice, broadcasting on all frequencies in perfect Zephyrian. Because we learned from watching you murder our neighbors. Across the globe, the coordinated assault began in earnest. Decades of preparation, reverse-engineered alien technology, and the collective industrial might of a species that had spent its entire history perfecting warfare unleashed itself upon the unsuspecting invaders. In Moscow, Red Square erupted with missile launchers that had been disguised as monument renovation scaffolding. The projectiles weren't carrying conventional warheads. They were equipped with gravity pulse generators reverse-engineered from crashed Zephyrian fighters that had been secretly recovered over the years. In Beijing, the Forbidden City's ancient walls slid away to reveal massive railgun installations. Their projectiles accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic impact alone was enough to overwhelm even advanced alien shielding. In London, Big Ben's clock face retracted to expose a focused particle beam weapon that could have served as a ship's main gun. The energy discharge lit up the Thames like artificial daylight. Admiral HFY watched in growing horror as a scout ship's status indicators shifted from green to yellow to flashing red. The impossible was happening. A primitive species was fighting back with weapons that rivaled their own technology. "How?" he whispered, his crystalline features reflecting the light from emergency displays. "How do they possess such technology?" The answer came from humanity's patient observation and relentless ingenuity. Every crashed scout ship, every piece of recovered alien debris, every intercepted communication had been analyzed, studied, and reverse-engineered. Human scientists had spent decades unlocking the secrets of Zephyrian technology, then improving upon it with the ruthless efficiency that had made their species the apex predator of their own world. But more than that, humanity had learned the most important lesson from watching alien invasions of other worlds. Never let the enemy dictate the terms of engagement. Commander Velthor's ship shuddered under another concentrated barrage. His shields were failing, and the primitive cityscape below had transformed into a fortress of hidden weapons that seemed to anticipate his every move. "Admiral, requesting immediate reinforcement," he transmitted. "The humans have set a trap. This entire planet is militarized beyond our intelligence estimates." "Impossible," HFY responded, but even as he spoke, similar reports flooded in from all 12 scout commanders. Every major city was revealing itself to be an elaborate weapons platform. The humans hadn't just prepared for invasion. They had turned their entire civilization into a military installation. What the Zephyrians still didn't understand was that humanity had done something no other species in their experience had ever attempted. They had united their entire planet in preparation for this moment. Every nation, every government, every military force had contributed to a single, coordinated defense plan. The humans had taken one look at the galaxy and realized a simple truth. If you want to survive in a universe full of predators, you don't just build walls. You build teeth. As Commander Velthor's ship finally succumbed to the relentless assault and began its uncontrolled descent toward the streets of Manhattan, he transmitted one final message to the fleet. "Admiral, I think we may have underestimated them." The ship impacted with a thunderous crash that echoed across the city, its crystalline hull shattering against concrete and steel. But instead of celebration, the humans below simply reloaded their weapons and turned their attention skyward, where the main Zephyrian fleet waited in orbit. General Mitchell smiled grimly as she watched the tactical displays. 12 scout ships down. Hundreds more to go. Phase 2 is authorized, she announced to her global commanders. "Let's show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home." The real war was just beginning. Admiral HFY stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 12 red marks indicated the loss of his entire advanced scout formation. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian expansion, no primitive species had ever managed to destroy even a single scout ship, let alone an entire reconnaissance wing. "Status report," he barked to his bridge crew. Tactical Officer Zexhai's crystalline face had lost its confident glow. "All scout ships confirmed destroyed, Admiral." The humans deployed coordinated planetary defense systems using energy weapons technology that our intelligence classified as impossible for their development level. "Reclassify the threat assessment," HFY ordered. "If they have energy weapons, they may have orbital defenses as well. Begin deep scan of the planet and surrounding space." What the scan revealed made every Zephyrian on the bridge take an involuntary step backward. The space around Earth wasn't empty as it had appeared. Hidden among the orbital debris and artificial satellites were weapons platforms that had been designed to look like space junk. Hundreds of them, positioned at optimal firing angles to create overlapping fields of fire that would catch any incoming fleet in a devastating crossfire. But that wasn't the worst discovery. Admiral, Science Officer Krendau reported, his voice trembling, "I'm detecting artificial gravitational anomalies at the Lagrange points. The humans have constructed massive installations there, hidden behind stealth fields that nearly match our own technology." The truth was becoming clear. Earth wasn't a primitive world ripe for conquest. It was a fortress that had been decades in the making, designed by a species that had studied Zephyrian tactics and prepared accordingly. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Lisa Chen received the activation signal she had been waiting for. The mining station New Horizon had been her home for the past 3 years, along with 200 other carefully selected personnel who had volunteered for humanity's most ambitious defensive project. To any outside observer, New Horizon appeared to be exactly what it claimed to be, a resource extraction facility designed to mine rare minerals from asteroids. The massive fusion reactors, the industrial fabrication equipment, the constant traffic of cargo vessels all supported that cover story perfectly. The reality was far different. "All hands, this is Captain Chun," she announced over the station's communication system. "Operation Dark Hammer is now active. Begin transformation sequence." Throughout the station, hidden mechanisms activated. Outer hull sections that had appeared to be or processing equipment retracted to reveal the barrels of mass drivers capable of accelerating projectiles to devastating velocities. Cargo bays opened to expose missile racks loaded with warheads specifically designed to penetrate Zephyrian shielding. Most impressive of all, the station's central core began to extend, revealing itself to be a massive particle beam cannon that drew power directly from the station's fusion reactors. New Horizon Asterisk wasn't a mining station. It was a battleship disguised as a mining station, and it wasn't alone. Scattered throughout the asteroid belt were 17 similar installations, each one a hidden weapons platform waiting for this exact moment. Targeting solutions locked on the Zephyrian fleet, reported Commander Paul Harrison from the Weapons Control Center. "Range is optimal for maximum kinetic impact. Awaiting your orders, Captain." Captain Chin looked out through the observation deck at the distant blue marble that was Earth. Somewhere down there, her daughter was probably watching the news coverage of the alien ships, not knowing that her mother was about to light up the solar system. "Fire," she ordered simply. The mass drivers spoke with the voice of controlled stellar fury. Tungsten projectiles, each one the size of a telephone pole and accelerated to 12% of light speed, screamed across the solar system toward the Zephyrian fleet. The journey would take 18 minutes, but when they arrived, they would hit with the force of nuclear weapons. Aboard the Crystal Dominion, Admiral Kethvar was still trying to process the scope of Earth's hidden defenses when his sensor operator's shocked voice cut through the bridge shatter. "Admiral, multiple high-velocity projectiles inbound from the outer system. Impact in 17 minutes. Impossible," Kethvar snapped. "There are no Terran installations beyond their moon." "Sir, the projectiles are coming from the asteroid belt. 17 separate launch points. These aren't missiles. They're kinetic kill vehicles moving at significant fractions of light speed." The Admiral's world turned upside down. The humans had militarized not just their planet, but their entire solar system. How long had they been preparing? How had they managed to keep such massive undertakings secret? "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "All ships scatter formation and begin random acceleration patterns." But even as his fleet began to disperse, Kethvar knew the truth. The kinetic projectiles had been fired with perfect targeting solutions based on predicted fleet positions. The humans had been watching them since they entered the solar system, probably since before they entered the solar system. This wasn't a conquest. It was an ambush. On Earth, General Mitchell watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Phase 2 was proceeding exactly as planned. The Zephyrian fleet was reacting to the kinetic bombardment just as the war games had predicted they would. They were scattering into a dispersed formation that would reduce the effectiveness of their combined firepower while making them vulnerable to the next phase of humanity's defense. General, we're receiving reports from the lunar installations, Colonel Rodriguez announced. Moonbase Alpha is ready to execute Phase 3 on your command. General Mitchell nodded. Humanity's lunar colony had been the most expensive construction project in human history, consuming the resources of every major nation for over a decade. The official story was that it represented humanity's first serious attempt at extraterrestrial colonization, a symbol of their species' expanding reach into the cosmos. The truth was that Moonbase Alpha was the largest weapons platform ever constructed by human hands. Commander David Kim had been born on Luna, part of the first generation of humans to call the moon home. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, training with weapons systems that officially didn't exist, studying tactical scenarios that the general public believed were science fiction. All sections report ready status. He announced to his crew from the command center buried 2 kilometers beneath the lunar surface. Orbital bombardment cannons are powered and targeted. Missile batteries are loaded and locked. Defense grid is active. Through the massive, transparent, aluminum windows of the command center, the Earth hung like a blue marble in the black sky, beautiful and vulnerable. Somewhere up there, alien ships were preparing to destroy his species' homeworld. That wasn't going to happen. This is Moonbase Alpha to Earth Command, Commander Kim transmitted. We are weapons-free and ready to engage. General Mitchell's voice came back immediately. Execute Phase 3. Show them what Luna Base is really for. The lunar surface erupted in controlled violence. Hidden silos opened across the moon's dark side, revealing missile batteries that had been constructed over the past 15 years. But these weren't ordinary missiles. They were equipped with human-developed gravity manipulation drives that allowed them to accelerate continuously rather than following ballistic trajectories. More impressive still were the mass drivers. Humanity had spent years perfecting magnetic acceleration technology, and the lunar installations represented the pinnacle of that development. Projectiles launched from Luna could reach Earth's orbit in less than 4 minutes, giving enemy vessels virtually no time to calculate evasive maneuvers. The first wave of lunar missiles reached the Zephyrian fleet just as the asteroid belt kinetic strikes began to impact. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as 2 of his heavy cruisers simply vanished in expanding spheres of plasma, as tungsten rods, traveling at relativistic speeds, punched through their shields like paper. Shields are useless against kinetic weapons of this velocity, his tactical officer screamed over the alarms. They're not using energy weapons. They're using mass. It was a lesson that humanity had learned from studying other species' defeats. Energy shields could deflect plasma bolts and particle beams, but they were far less effective against solid matter moving at extreme velocities. The humans had weaponized basic physics, turning mass and acceleration into unstoppable force. But the nightmare was just beginning. The lunar missiles arrived in the middle of the kinetic bombardment, their gravity drives allowing them to change course even in the final seconds of their approach. Zephyrian point defense systems, designed to intercept energy weapons and traditional projectiles, proved inadequate against missiles that could alter their trajectories faster than targeting computers could compensate. Admiral, his communications officer reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the planet. It's the human military commander." General Mitchell's face appeared on the main screen, her expression calm and professional despite the violence occurring around her planet. She spoke in perfect Zephyrian, her pronunciation indicating years of study. "Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire," she began. "I am General Sarah Mitchell of the United Earth Defense Force. Your species has a reputation for conquest that spans millennia. You have destroyed hundreds of civilizations and enslaved countless billions of sentient beings. Today, that ends." Kethvar found his voice despite the chaos erupting around his fleet. Human, how do you possess such technology? Your world was classified as primitive. General Mitchell's smile was as cold as the space between stars. Because we've been watching you for 25 years. Every world you've conquered, we've monitored. Every tactic you've used, we've studied. Every weakness you've displayed, we've cataloged. Did you think you were the only species capable of learning from observation? The truth hit Kethvar like a physical blow. Humans have been studying Zephyrian invasion tactics for decades, learning from the defeats of other species, preparing for the day when Earth would be targeted. They had used that knowledge to prepare not just defenses, but specifically tailored countermeasures designed to exploit every weakness in Zephyrian doctrine. You built your entire military strategy around fighting primitive civilizations. General Mitchell continued as another Zephyrian ship disappeared in a ball of plasma. You assumed that technological superiority would guarantee victory. You never considered what would happen if you encountered a species that had studied your methods and prepared accordingly. Impossible. Kethvar quoted. No species has ever had 25 years to prepare, Mitchell interrupted. No species has ever had the opportunity to study your methods before you arrived. And, most importantly, no species has ever been quite as good at warfare as humanity. As if to emphasize her point, the space around Earth erupted with defensive fire. The hidden orbital platforms revealed themselves, unleashing concentrated barrages of energy weapons that had been reverse-engineered and improved from captured Zephyrian technology. The weapons platforms themselves began to move, revealing that they weren't stationary defenses, but mobile battle stations that had been disguised as space debris. You see, Admiral, General Mitchell explained as the Zephyrian fleet found itself surrounded by enemies that had appeared from nowhere. Humanity has spent its entire evolutionary history learning one simple lesson. When someone threatens your tribe, your family, your home, you don't just fight back. You make sure they never threaten anyone ever again. Another wave of kinetic projectiles arrived from the asteroid belt, and 3 more Zephyrian ships vanished in expanding clouds of superheated plasma and twisted metal. The mighty fleet that had conquered 400 worlds was being systematically destroyed by a species they had dismissed as primitive. This is impossible, Kethvar whispered, watching his armada dissolve around him. No, Admiral, General Mitchell corrected him. This is humanity. Admiral Kethvar's fleet was dying around him, but he was a veteran of 300 campaigns and not ready to accept defeat. If humanity wanted a war, he would give them one that would make their planet a monument to the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire. All remaining ships formed defensive formation around the flagship, he ordered. Prepare to execute planetary bombardment protocol. If we cannot conquer this world, we will ensure it serves as an example to any other species that dares resist us. The surviving 30 ships of his once mighty fleet moved into position, their main guns beginning the charge sequence for orbital bombardment. Each vessel carried enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Together, they could render Earth uninhabitable for 1,000 years. But, as the weapons powered up, Admiral Kethvar discovered that humanity had one more surprise waiting for him. Deep in the ice beneath Antarctica, the final phase of Earth's defense network hummed to life. The continent had always been the perfect cover for humanity's most ambitious project, a series of massive fusion reactors that powered a weapon system so large it could only have been built on a planetary scale. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent her entire career in theoretical physics leading to this moment. She stood in the control room of the facility that officially didn't exist, watching readouts that showed power levels building toward unprecedented levels. Planetary defense grid at 90%, reported her chief engineer, Dr. Marcus Thompson. All grid nodes responding. We have clean firing solutions on all remaining enemy vessels. The planetary defense grid was humanity's ultimate weapon, a network of interconnected energy projectors positioned at strategic points around Earth's surface. Each projector drew power from dedicated fusion reactors, and contributed to a coordinated beam that could be focused with the precision of a scalpel or dispersed to create an impenetrable defensive barrier. Dr. Vasquez, came General Mitchell's voice through the communication system. You are authorized to demonstrate why attacking Earth was the worst mistake the Zephyrian Empire has ever made. Dr. Vasquez placed her hand on the firing control grid at 100% power, initiating planetary defense protocols. The effect was visible from orbit. Points of light began to appear across Earth's surface, growing brighter as fusion reactors that had been hidden for decades channeled their output into the defense grid. Within seconds, pillars of coherent energy lanced upward from the planet, each one bright enough to be seen from the outer solar system. But these beams didn't fire independently. They converged. Admiral Kethvar watched in growing horror as streams of energy from hundreds of points on Earth's surface met in space, combining into a single beam of such intensity that it made his ship's sensors overload just trying to measure it. The combined energy output of an entire planet's industrial base, focused into a weapon that could have served as a star destroyer. The beam struck his flagship's shields and simply erased them. The backup shields lasted for 3 seconds. The tertiary shields didn't even register the impact before failing. The focused energy of hundreds of fusion reactors punched through the Crystal Dominion's hull like it was made of paper. Abandoned ship. Kethvar screamed, but it was too late. The planetary defense beam didn't just destroy the flagship. It vaporized it so completely that not even debris remained. In the command center beneath Antarctica, Dr. Vasquez calmly adjusted the beam's focus. Target destroyed. Shifting to next target. The beam swept across the remaining Zephyrian formation like a sword of light, and ship after ship simply ceased to exist. In less than 2 minutes, the invasion fleet that had terrorized 400 worlds was reduced to expanding clouds of plasma and the echo of final transmissions. But humanity wasn't finished yet. Captain Chin watched from New Horizon as the last Zephyrian ship vanished in a burst of light. The immediate threat was over, but General Mitchell's voice came through the communication system with orders that made the captain's blood run cold. All deep space assets, prepare for Phase 4. We're taking this war to them. Phase 4 had been the most controversial part of humanity's defense planning. It wasn't enough to repel the invasion. The Zephyrian Empire needed to understand that attacking Earth carried consequences that would follow them across the galaxy. Across the asteroid belt, the hidden battle stations revealed their final secret. They weren't just weapons platforms. They were launch platforms for humanity's most ambitious military project. Sleek ships began emerging from the facilities, vessels that looked nothing like human design, but bore a disturbing resemblance to improved versions of Zephyrian technology. These were the Deep Strike vessels, built from reverse-engineered alien technology and powered by fusion drives that could sustain acceleration for months. Each one carried a crew of volunteers who had accepted that they might never see Earth again, but who were willing to carry humanity's message to the stars. Captain Maria Santos commanded the lead ship, Retribution. She had lost her brother in the Zephyrian attack on the colony ship Endeavour 15 years earlier, one of humanity's first contacts with the Empire. Since that day, she had lived for this moment. All ships report ready for phase jump, she announced to the fleet. Destination, Zephyr Prime. The Deep Strike fleet activated their FDL drives, another gift of reverse-engineered alien technology, and vanished into the void, carrying with them a message that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of humanity. 3 days later, Admiral Zarketh of the Zephyrian Home Defense Fleet received a priority transmission from the outer sensor grid. Unknown ships were approaching the capital system at high speed, using technology that appeared to be based on Zephyrian designs. Ship configuration analysis complete, reported his tactical officer. The vessels are using our own propulsion technology, but the hull designs are unknown. They're broadcasting on our emergency frequencies. Put on speakers, Admiral Zarketh ordered. Captain Santos' voice filled the command center, speaking in flawless Zephyrian. This is Captain Maria Santos of the Earth Deep Strike Fleet. We are here to deliver a message from humanity to the Zephyrian Empire. Impossible, Admiral Zarket breted. Earth was scheduled for conquest. The fleet should have secured the system days ago. Captain Santos' response came as if she had heard his thoughts. Your invasion fleet no longer exists. Admiral Kethvar and his entire armada were destroyed attempting to attack our homeworld. We are here to explain the terms of humanity's response to your unprovoked aggression. The tactical display showed 12 ships approaching the outer system, an insignificant force compared to the hundreds of vessels defending Zephyr Prime. But something about their confident approach and obvious technological capability sent ice through Admiral Zarketh's veins. These are the terms, Captain Santos continued. The Zephyrian Empire will immediately cease all expansion activities and withdraw from every world conquered in the past 50 years. You will provide reparations to the surviving populations of conquered worlds. You will submit to monitoring by an international coalition that humanity will organize. Preposterous. Admiral Zarketh transmitted back. You are 12 ships against our entire home fleet. Even with stolen technology, you cannot hope to threaten us. Captain Santos' reply came with a coldness that would have impressed a Zephyrian executioner. Admiral, you still don't understand what kind of species you decided to attack. We're not here to threaten you. We're here to demonstrate why threatening humanity was the last mistake your empire will ever make. The deep strike ships suddenly accelerated, moving faster than Zephyrian vessels should have been able to travel. But these weren't just copied ships. They were improved versions built by a species that had spent decades studying alien technology and finding ways to make it better. As they approached the outer defensive perimeter, the ships began to split apart, revealing their true nature. Each vessel was actually a carrier, filled with smaller attack craft that deployed like angry insects from a disturbed hive. Within minutes, 12 ships had become hundreds. But even that wasn't the real demonstration. As Admiral Zarketh's fleet moved to intercept the human forces, Captain Santos activated the final phase of her mission. The attack craft suddenly changed course, not engaging the Zephyrian ships, but instead forming a precise formation around Zephyr Prime's largest moon. What are they doing? Admiral Zarketh demanded. His science officer's voice shook with disbelief. Admiral, they're mining the moon. In real time, I'm detecting massive gravity manipulation fields that are extracting metals and forming them into. The moon was being rapidly disassembled and reconstructed into a massive structure that grew larger with each passing minute. Within an hour, humanity had built a space station the size of a small continent using nothing but the raw materials from a Zephyrian moon and technology that shouldn't have existed. This is impossible, Admiral Zarketh whispered. No species possesses such rapid construction capability. Captain Santos' voice came through the communication system one final time. Admiral, this is what humanity does. We take what we need, we build what we require, and we adapt to any challenge. Your empire spent 3,000 years conquering primitive civilizations. You never learned to fight someone who could fight back. The massive space station that had been a moon minutes earlier suddenly came online, its weapons systems powering up with the distinctive whine of gravity-based weaponry. But these weren't just ship killers. They were planet crackers, weapons designed to split worlds apart from the inside. We're not here to conquer you, Captain Santos explained. We're here to give you a choice. End your expansion and make reparations for the worlds you've destroyed, or we'll show you what happens when a species that has spent its entire history perfecting warfare decides that you need to be stopped. The weapons trained on Zephyr Prime, and every Zephyrian in the system understood with crystal clarity that the humans weren't bluffing. They had the technology, the capability, and clearly the will to destroy the Zephyrian homeworld if their demands weren't met. Admiral Zarketh found himself in a position no Zephyrian commander had experienced in millennia, facing an enemy that was demonstrably superior in both technology and tactical capability. What guarantee do we have that you won't destroy us regardless of our response? He transmitted. Because, Captain Santos replied, humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to be left alone to explore it in peace. But if any species threatens our home or our friends, we'll remind them why evolution made us the most successful predators our planet has ever produced. The standoff lasted for 6 hours while Zephyrian leadership debated their response. In the end, faced with the undeniable evidence that humanity possessed both the technology and the resolve to end their civilization, they chose surrender. The Zephyrian Empire, conqueror of 400 worlds, officially ceased expansion operations and began the process of withdrawing from occupied territories. The message spread across the galaxy with remarkable speed. Earth was not a world to be threatened. But, perhaps more importantly, the message that accompanied the news carried a different meaning for other species. Humanity was not interested in conquest or domination. They were interested in friendship, trade, and exploration. The galaxy had a new protector, and it was a species that had learned the most important lesson in the universe. The best defense is making sure no one wants to fight you in the first place. Captain Santos looked out at the stars from the observation deck of her ship as it began the long journey home. Somewhere out, there were hundreds of species who were now free from Zephyrian oppression. Somewhere out, there were new friends waiting to be discovered. And somewhere in a small blue world orbiting a yellow star, humanity was already planning their next step into the cosmos. Not as conquerors, but as explorers. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humanity had just made it a safer place for everyone to discover them. The invasion fleet that had come to conquer Earth had succeeded in only one goal. They had introduced the galaxy to a species that would spend the next 1,000 years making sure that no civilization would ever again have to face the choice between slavery and extinction. They had come to invade, only to discover that sometimes the prey has bigger teeth than the predator.